welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are doing a no color coloring technique. So that was the best thing I could think of to call it. It's hard to come up with names for videos. Sometimes that's the hardest part. So to start, I have the BERGENIA Builder from Altenew. I'm using that large floral bunch, and it has a coordinating die, which is one of the reasons why I chose this particular set today. I have some watercolor paper here. This is Canson XL watercolor paper, and it has a smooth and a rougher side, and I'm actually using the rougher side today. I'm going to do some heat embossing, so I have my Recollections Snow Detail Embossing Powder, some Versamark ink, anti-static powder tool, all the goodies. I have some VELLUM here from Amazon. I've been using that quite a bit actually lately, and it's going to be a key element in today's video. I have some fine touch water brushes today. Do I like those water brushes? No, I do not, but that is what I have, and I end up using one of the flat ones. These are Nuvo Shimmer powders. I've had these in my collection for a very long time. There are lots of these shimmer powders out on the market. I show you two colors, but I end up making a second card, and so I will show you those when we get to it. I chose one of the flatter brushes from that particular set. This is the 15 millimeter, yes, 15 millimeter flat one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just tap a little bit of this shimmer powder out onto my desk. You want to tap, you never want to squeeze these bottles. You will have shimmer powder absolutely everywhere, and it will never go away, and you will clean it up for years. No, but it will make a huge mess. So make sure you only tap it. I'm going to spritz just a little bit of water into each of these little powder puddles. And then I am going to spritz my paper also. When I set out, I intended to have kind of like a very soft wash, but these colors are very, very intense. I could have, diluted them down a little bit further, but I actually didn't mind how they looked. So I have the Nuvo shimmer powders, but if you have like actual watercolors, there's the, I can't think of her name. There's lots of shimmer powders out on the market. You could even use Perfect Pearls if you wanted to. You could do like regular watercolors and then spray like mix Perfect Pearls in there or some other mica powder. You could even spritz it with like a shimmer spray if you wanted to. But I liked that these already have the shimmer kind of built in. It's hard to capture in pictures and in video, but the shimmer is very soft and very pretty. So all I did is after I had sprayed my paper and sprayed those little petals of powder or piles of powder, I'm just brushing this on. I'm bringing in the stamp set just to kind of ensure that I have it reaching out far enough. I like how far the pigment is reaching across the paper, and I decided I needed it a little bit further. So I'm trying to go back and forth and kind of have a nice blend between those two colors. And I chose two colors that are next to each other on the rainbow. That way they don't make mud. They will blend nicely together, and I'm just trying to work on that transition there. I did a technically wet on wet technique, so the pigment is wet and the paper was wet. If you wanted to, you could just spray this, put the powder directly on your panel and spray it with water. I've done that before. But my whole technique today is I didn't want to color. I'm not comfortable like coloring. There are times where yes, I want to color and play with markers and that kind of thing, but most of the time I like stencils, and I like techniques like this where it's very simple, quote unquote mindless watercoloring or coloring in general. And I've seen something like this on Pinterest where they had like the background was colored, but the image they put on top was not. And I really thought it was really pretty. And so I thought that this would be a very quick process, and it was. I'm just doing kind of a strip off to the side, but if you wanted to do the whole panel, you absolutely could. I just kind of liked that. I kind of liked how this looked. You could do, to quote unquote, not color, but color an image. You could do pattern paper. If you have a gel print that you like, you could cut that apart and use that. You could do ink smooshing. You could do ink blending. I mean, there are tons of ways that you can accomplish the same look. I just chose to use my shimmer powders today. The first card went by really fast and I really enjoyed it, and so I decided since I had everything out, we would make another one, but we would use a couple different colors. So here is Solar Flare and Catherine Wheel. Again, two colors that are fairly close to each other on the rainbow. And not so much with the Solar Flare, but with the Catherine Wheel, it looks very red, like in the container, but it's more like corally orange. And I don't know if it's because I watered it down. Maybe I didn't have as much pigment. I don't know, but it was not what I was expecting, and it still looked really pretty. So I'm doing the same process, just swiping pigment across there. I wet the paper again and had wet pigment that I was bringing to it. This one ends up being a lot softer, and this is what I kind of intended with the other one, but those pigments seem to be much stronger. Again, maybe I had more powder and less water. I'm not sure. But either way, this, when I set out to do these cards, I intended them to be soft like this one, but they still are both very pretty. And again, I'm just kind of going back and forth trying to work on that transition. I'll bring in the stamp set just to make sure that I have everything out far enough. And I mean, you see, I'm not trying to be like super precise. I'm not trying to like have a clean border. I like those kind of brush strokey edges. I think that adds a lot of interest and prettiness. So I'm going to set those off to dry. And I have a piece of vellum here. It was just a scrap that I had cut off of a larger sheet. And I'm going to bring in that actual bouquet, and I'm going to stamp that in my Misty. So I am going to be doing some heat embossing. So I have my Versamark ink. I'm going to treat this vellum very generously with some anti-static powder. Let's kind of spread that around, and then I will stamp this out twice. I stamped it out twice, and now I'm going to pour on my snow embossing powder from Recollections, and then I will have my heat gun heating up while I kind of clean up some bits and pieces here and there, and then I will heat set this all at one time. I use some tweezers to kind of help me hold this and keep myself from burning my fingers, since I do not have asbestos fingers. And so I'm just going to heat set these all at the same time, and then we can move on to the die cutting. Vellum is very tricky to adhere. You will inevitably see the adhesive unless you apply adhesive over the entire image that you're trying to adhere down. So I have some sticky sheets from Altenew, and I have just peeled the backer off, and I am rubbing this heat embossed image, once it had cooled down, all over just a section of this adhesive sheet from Altenew, and then I'm going to snip off the excess, and then I will run this through my die cut machine. This double-sided sticky sheet die cuts beautifully. I feel like it has a very heavy backer on it, and so I was kind of concerned that it wouldn't die cut very well, but it die cut great. So here I'm just trimming off some of the excess so that when I run this through my die cut machine, I don't have like that sheet sticking all over and gumming up my plates and stuff like that. So just trying to kind of clean that up a little bit. Then I will tape the die down and run that through my die cut machine, and it did die cut beautifully. I poked out some of those little innards, and there I was showing you that there was kind of like a bar. The die kind of left an indent in along the flower, and so all I did was take the back of my bone folder and flip this image over to where the embossed side was down, and just kind of rub my bone folder along the back of that, just to try to kind of get rid of that ugly kind of bar impression that was there. I am going to trim these watercolor panels down after I heat set them a little bit, and I'm going to trim them down to 4 by 5 1/4. I wanted to have just a little bit of a border showing on each side of the card base. And I am trying to be more conscious of using colored cardstock. I always like when people use color card bases in their card making, and I never seem to do it. I always go with white, and I need to start using ones that are colored because I really like how it looks. So I made myself a couple card bases. These are card bases from Die Cuts Love Paper on Etsy, and I will make sure that I put her down in the description box below. But I just folded them in half and stamped my little logo on the back. And then we are going to glue down each of these panels flat. See, I just wanted to have a little bit of a border. I thought that helped bring out some of the colors in the panel. And this is kind of the layout we're going to have. So I peeled off the backer of that essentially sticker I have, and the backer peels off really easy. My nails are pretty short right now, and I didn't even struggle to get the backer off. It was really quite easy. And now you don't even see that there's adhesive there because it is over the entirety of the image. I'm going to flip over and trim off that little bit of excess stem that was hanging off the bottom, and then I'm going to repeat this for the other one. I am going to glue these down flat. I toyed with the idea of putting some dimension behind them, but I kind of liked the idea of keeping them flat, although you could add scrap cardstock behind it to pop it up, or even foam tape or fun foam. But I chose to keep mine flat today. I chose a sentiment from that same BERGENIA Builder stamp set and nestled it kind of in the corner down here, this bottom right corner. I'm using Peach Bellini ink for this particular one, and then for the other one I'm using Peach Bellini ink from Gina K, and then for the other one I am using Sweets from Simon. And I just chose to kind of pick one of the colors that matched some of the watercolors that I used, the shimmer powders that I used. And I feel like I got pretty darn close as far as trying to kind of match the color I was going for. So this is the Sweets. And I just used the same sentiment for both. It says, "You're so special." Sometimes we just need to know that we are worth a little something. Sometimes we need to be reminded that we are special. I felt like this needed just a little bit of something, so I went into my stash and found some sequins. These are clear iridescent sequins. I got these from a range of color on Etsy. Again, I will link her below. And I just scattered those around the edges of the card, and then that is it. I'm adhering them down with some liquid glue, and then that is it for these cards. I paired them with some envelopes that were matched the card bases pretty close, and those were from Paper Studio, and then we're done. So I appreciate you spending time with me today. I hope you feel inspired. I know that if you get to that point where you don't want to color but you need to make a card and it needs some color behind it, maybe give this a try, or use pattern paper or a gel print or something else that you've got in your stash to add some color without having to actually color. So that is it for me today. Again, I appreciate your time. I hope you feel inspired, and we will see you next time. Bye.